That's the button right there. So welcome to everyone, wherever you may be. I see people from all over here, Minnesota and Arizona, Oregon, Pacific Northwest is AA7MO, and Sioux Falls, Idaho, Mount St. Helens country, from warm, smoky Sacramento. Boy, I can imagine that the air quality out there is really something. The smoke from the West Coast fires is making it all the way to Denver and actually beyond. And it's not just California. It's California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and let's see what's on the other side of that. Wyoming and Minnesota, and there's fires everywhere. There's also a number of fires in Siberia that together total more acreage than the fires that we have in the United States, and they don't have the people there. It's a very sparsely populated country or area of Russia, and so they're just burning. And they don't have the rain. They have drought just like we do, and so it's making a mess of their forests. Neil Marsh says, love the Railroad Museum down there. There is a Railroad Museum here in Ridgeway, and it is moved recently, and they've moved it into the ranch. The old ranch museum is now housing that and the Railroad Museum. They've laid a quarter-mile track in a lot to the south of the museum there, and they actually give rides now. One of the things that's coming to them would be here by now if it weren't for a fire at the factory, is the new locomotive, an actual steam locomotive. But it has a system snuck inside, that will allow it to run on compressed air. So they don't have to create, they don't have to bring the boiler to full boil just to give rides around a quarter-mile track. So, hello to Los Alamos, Bob Darlington, Louisiana, Scott Johnson, Gray Hiker, hi from Pennsylvania. Steve Ash, WB7VEQ says hi. William Myers, KE0OG. Lots of people. Montana? Yeah, Montana has got some pretty good-sized forests, too. Not so big, maybe, as Oregon or Washington, which have the really big, giant forests. Humid, Pennsylvania. Laurel, Maryland, also humid. Hello from Alabama, and humid there, too. Learned so much from your videos. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. This is KE0ECB, David Robinson. Not licensed yet. This is Jensen 567. Not licensed yet, but looking to take both the amateur or that would be the technician and the general in early September. Be sure to go to KE0OG.net/general, /training for your technician license assist, and to KE0OG.net/general. And let's see. And Chris Gray is going for his tech Saturday, and we'll try to attempt the general as well. Good. Hello, Dave from Harry AC3EK from Overlea, Maryland. Do you have a good portable antenna that you may recommend? There are a bunch out there. Chameleon makes several. You could look at the Buddy Pole. I have a Buddy Pole that I keep in the trailer. I haven't heard much from Buddy Pole these days. I don't know what they're doing, but I've got one and it works. A nice portable antenna you can set up about anywhere. Lightning strike fire less than a quarter mile from my house today. Loud. Oh, I can imagine it was. N7 OVR. Neil is asking what band. Oh, you could always just... What I used to do when I was just out of college, my friends and I would go camping up near Mount Gleason in Southern California. And we'd hang a dipole between two trees, a 40-meter dipole, and that's what we would use. Do very well with it. Thanks. Let's see. Swamp Fox says, thanks in large part to my videos, he passed the amateur extra exam last weekend. Well, congratulations, Swamp Fox, on your upgrade. Great. Now, next, prepare to be a VE. Hello from West Sacramento, California. I was born in Modesto, which is just south of where you are. Hello from Tucson. I was down there one time. It was 110, 115, and I had to get on an airplane and fly home. And the only reason they let me on the airplane was because I was a frequent flyer. They ejected half of the passengers, half, so that they could get the plane off the ground. The air was that thin. Colorado on drought, yes, it is. Although last week we had over an inch of rain, and I was down going to Ridgway, and the Lake and Ridgway State Park, the Ridgway Reservoir, is filling up because of the rain. I mean, usually by this time of the summer, a lot of the water is gone, but it's filling up. So I guess it's being able to keep its commitments and still keep the reservoir kind of full. Let's see, from Sydney, Australia, where the winds were so strong my vertical was almost turned into a sloper. That's pretty strong. Somebody from Seattle. Let's see, that's Paul Amschler, WB6 MRI. Okay, and VE5 DOG says, good evening, Dave. Don Dixon. VK4 DPC from sunny Brisbane in VK land. It's getting into spring down there, I would imagine. Hello from Xenia, Ohio. Flyover country. Yeah, I know. I flew over it a lot when I worked for IBM. Our division's customer was the U.S. federal government, and so that meant I flew to Dulles far more than I ever wanted to. If I never get inside another commercial airplane again, it'll be too soon. I wouldn't mind getting in my own airplane, but that's a whole different story. By the way, I do have that up on the internet. The URL for that is to go to dcasler.com, DCASLER.com /N8053R. That's the FAA registration for the airplane, November 8053 Romeo. And you can see it there. What I need to do, what I am missing, I have to just bite the bullet and drive up to Delta, which is an hour away, and take a whole bunch of pictures of the airplane, put them on the web. And then, as soon as I have that, I'm in a position to put the thing on Barnstormers and see if, that's how I bought it, and see if I can find somebody who would love to have that airplane. And then I'm going to start looking at ultralights. You don't need any official training. My instructor and I had I won't say it was a disagreement, it was just she rendered a judgment that I would probably never solo because just didn't have the right stuff. So with an ultralight, you don't need a license to fly it. So I was talking Sunday to a helicopter pilot. He flies the helicopter that sits on top of our local hospital. And he's quite active in that thing. And I asked him at church on Sunday, I says, what do you think of ultralights? He says, ultralight, parachute, whatever. Any way you can get in the air, do it. So he has actually expressed mild interest in my airplane, so he may be coming along to do that. What are your thoughts on magnetic loops, HF for HOA in Tucson? Yeah, they work. They work. They're as good as a dipole. They're the equivalent of a dipole. The problem with them is they're very high Q, which means they have very narrow bandwidth. You get down on 40 meters with an MFJ remotely tuned loop, and you got like 5 kilohertz on either side. So if you were to look at your waterfall, there'd be nothing on it except right where you're operating. And that's the feature of the magnetic loop that makes it iffy for some people. There's an Italian company who I can't remember the name of, through DX Engineering. It's a $2,000 antenna, but it connects to your radio. It figures out the frequency you're on, and it puts the loop on that frequency. So now that's good because as you tune the radio hunting for a CQ, it'll be tuning the loop with you. There's a big giant capacitor at the top of the loop, and that limits the amount of power because you put more power in it, it will arc in the capacitor. You don't want that to happen. The MFJ is built to take about 150 watts. Some of them, like the Chameleon, is it the F loop I have or the P loop? I think it's the P loop. Limit you to about 25 watts. So they're good for portable operation. Be careful with the loops that you can remotely tune it. This is a great thing. You just put it out on the balcony and nobody knows what it is. You know, it looks like a hula hoop. And I've got somebody who sent me a question. He lives on the top floor of a condo and the roof right above him. And he is not allowed to penetrate the roof for obvious reasons. But he can go out his window. And I'm going to tell him about a situation I had when I was in the Air Force in the bachelor officer quarters at MacDill Air Force Base. I talked to the base commander about this, and he approved it. And the people running the BOQ approved it. And I put an antenna on the roof with a wooden stand that was held down by either sandbags or bricks. I think it was bricks. And of course it didn't injure or impede on the roof in any way. And then ran the cables down the side of the building to my room. And nobody had an issue with it, and I could get on the air just fine. I put my 14 AVQ up there. So you can do something like that too if they'll let you run a cable over the parapet and down one floor and into the balcony area. Would work just fine. If you run it through a window, you've got the problem of keeping the rain out and so on. But you can always put a connector there and unscrew it when you need to close the window all the way, like during a thunderstorm. Howdy from the coast of Lake Champlain in Vermont. Hello, Noah. KC1NWN. Isaac Newton says, cheers from Brazil. Can explain the vertical 4 times 5/8 VHF like the Comet GP9. Yeah, there's a 5/8 wave antenna. These were really common about 40 years ago. I have one. It's 40 years old. It is a mag mount for my car, and that's a long antenna, 5/8 wavelength, and it has a loading coil at the bottom. I think Diamond made it. You can look around for these things. The problem, of course, is that you have to load it in order for it to work. And what it did, the way it gave you a gain, was you're driving along in your car and your radiation is all going around you, but the amount that would normally go up gets squashed down a little bit because of the length of the antenna. So it appears that you have gain. That's how an antenna creates gain, is it bunches up the radiation and sends it in one direction. So Greetings from the Canary Islands, John Mills, EA8 G $STA. 67-foot long wire ZEP is as deaf as a post. It's back to G5RV, the ZS6 BKW version. Let's see if that rocks and rolls. You're with I'd almost recommend you put up a vertical of some kind, because if the radiation goes up, it hits the ionosphere, it's going to come back down over the ocean. Okay, and where you are in the Canary Islands, if you get a vertical, you can get your radiation lower, hence farther on the first hop. And you get to Europe probably pretty well. Okay, I commented on your 40-meter dipole video, then got notified you are live. Do you need a 1-to-1 Ballon with a dipole? It is considered best practice, but I don't do it. I have had bad luck with 1-to-1 Ballons at the feed point of an antenna, a dipole. I've had good luck with just directly connecting the coax to the antenna. You can put a little SO239 there, or is it 239? Yeah, 239, and a PL259 on the coax, or you can just take the coax and directly solder it to the leads. Either way works fine. They are readily available. The key thing for the Ballon, the real reason for the Ballon, is to keep RF from flowing down the outside of the shield. Okay, because a coax is very good at keeping RF energy inside the coax. But the shield is a whole nother conductor as far as RF is concerned. And if that comes down the outside of the shield, it can get into your radio and cause RF. So there are a couple different things you can do. MFJ makes this little thing, which is, can't read the label on anymore because I've had it outside. This is just a choke Ballon. It has a loop of coax in here with ferrite beads around it. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is just to loop some coax. But the problem is that it takes about 25 feet of coax. And so whatever you pay for coax, that's what you pay for that Ballon. It'd be almost cheaper to get that one. People do things in different ways for those antennas. I would suggest you try the dipole with a direct connection. And if you run into RFI problems, then put a choke Ballon in. Roll up about 25 feet of coax into something that's about 9 inches in diameter. Put cable ties around the thing and just hang it up there. I think that would work very well. Okay, King Duckford says, I have my general, but I can't log into the Manitoba 80-meter net because it is, I think that's probably meant to be a 3.747. Okay, and I'm not sure if that's down in the advanced portion of the band or not. But yes, you can do that. I thought most of 80 meters was now open. 80 meters. 3.6, okay, 3.7 and up is advanced, 3.8 and up is general, so you're correct. You can't get that. Okay, so King Duckford, yes, go to KE0OG.net/extra to find all the training videos for extra. Dave, a big guy like you, I would have figured you'd be a soldier or a Marine. I'm not that big. The camera must be lying or something. All my weight is in my stomach, okay? I'm a fat old man, and My doctor's on my case that I weigh 250 pounds. I've got to get rid of about 70 pounds to be really healthy weight for my age, which I'm working on. When I was in the service, I was neither a soldier nor a Marine. I was an airman. I was in the United States Air Force from 1976 to 1980 and got out as a captain, and promptly went into the aerospace industry, where I was either directly doing aerospace or doing something on the borders of it, pretty much for the rest of my career. I've worked around lots of government bureaucrats. I'm actually impressed. You know, they're not always the best paid people or anything like that, but I have to say, every government bureaucrat or officer or official or worker I've met is very dedicated to the job. And that's what motivates them, because the government jobs don't pay very well. So a lot of the really smart people go out. When I went to Northrop, I would say, hires the B students. The B students are the ones who are C students who work really hard and get Bs in college. IBM hired the A students. Now, the problem with the A students is a lot of them float through school because they really don't have to study. But the B students have to work like crazy to get that. And that is what Northrop wanted. It wanted that work ethic, and it got it. And I would say the teamwork at Northrop in my 3.5 years there was phenomenal. And nobody that I asked for information put me off. Some came a little close, but I managed to get it. And I was in systems engineering, and so I was talking to a lot of people. When I went to IBM, I noticed that all these A students were competing with each other. And the teamwork wasn't there. It just wasn't there. People were hoarding information and all that. I've made it my job all my life. If I get some information other people need, I spread it proactively. And that made me rather different from some of the other IBMers. Anyway, I got used to it. I was a B student in college. I was a B student in high school because I was an A student who was lazy. And I got into college, and my first semester I got my only college C. After that, it was all A's and B's. And then when I went to graduate work and get my degree in electrical engineering as a graduate student, I only had one B. Everything else was an A. It's because I worked my butt off to get that degree. So I have to start studying for my extra too. Well, William, nothing's stopping you. Have I upgraded the firmware of my 7300 reference station? I understand there is a new piece of firmware out. I haven't upgraded it. I'll have to do that and maybe make a video out of that or something. Let's see, Don, I don't know why YouTube didn't allow that through. I approved it. For a common mode choke, I use 12 turns of RG58 on an FT240-43 core on the radio end of the coax. Well, now, if that works, fine. If you run into a problem with that where you're still getting RFI in the shack, it's coming down as far as that ferrite, you could put that up by the antenna. But if it works well for you, you've got the problem solved. King Duckford points out 3.8 is the cutoff of general phone. Yes, I had forgotten that. Hello from Saskatchewan, Canada. John Hummel Newell, VE5JHN. And Neil Marsh, go Zoomies. Yes, it's the Air Force. Love ladder line on my loop. Would there be any advantage to using it on my multi-band Yagi? Yeah. Um, Now remember that the impedance is about 450 ohms for the common ladder line that's actually technically called window line. Real ladder line, 600 ohm ladder line, true ladder line, is more expensive. It's 600 ohms. Probably you're going to want to go with the window line because it's much easier to deal with. Yes, you can. You need to keep it away from your tower, so you're going to need to have standoff insulators where it goes up your tower. And you've got to either put a Ballon there or tune the antenna for 450 ohms, which you might be able to do. So, or A students with a lot going on in their life at the time of school. Yeah, when I was working on my graduate degree, the one class I got a B in, I missed the midterm because that was the night that Jonathan, my firstborn, was born. He was born about halfway through the class. I was at the hospital where I should have been. I talked to the instructor beforehand. He says, don't worry about it. I'll base the grade on your final. So he gave me a B, and I went and said, what are you doing? I know I aced the final. He says, well, you missed the midterm. What do you want me to do? I says, you told me. He says, oh, no, I didn't. Oh, no, I didn't. My advisor warned me against that guy as an instructor, and I did not heed his warning because I wanted to know. He was the only guy teaching digital stuff, and I wanted to know about it. Okay. Congratulations here. Have FT100D with RC option. What software do you recommend to control this radio? Is it a 100D or a 1000D? If it's an FT, if it's a 1000D, you can, trying to think whether Chirp will control that radio. If it really is 100D, I don't know. Chirp, CHIRP, and you get that at chirp.danplanet, DAN, and then the word planet.com. And you might have to put a www in front of that. I don't know. I had trouble getting on that site the other day. It has software for controlling lots and lots and lots of radios. Now, Yaesu has software for controlling your radio, but you have to pay for it. That's the problem. Okay, worked for Northrop Grumman for 2 years as a systems analyst, though I was hired into a system engineer job for which I was utterly unqualified. I was a Navy 05 at the time. 05 is Lieutenant Colonel. Looking to retire. I went into system engineering because I did not yet have my engineering degree. I had a degree in mathematics, but not an engineering degree. I was still working on it. And I went to Northrop and said, I want to be an engineer. And they said, well, the only place we can put you is in system engineering. So I went in there in my mid-20s as the only person in the group under the age of 50. And I was starting to think it was a dumping ground for engineers that really didn't work out anywhere else. But I really dove into that job. I had to put together basically a manual for how to use the inertial measurement unit for the MX missile. And, oh man, I had so many people to talk to because there were so many systems. I eventually ended up with enough stacked up knowledge that they asked me to teach a class, 24 hours of classroom instruction to incoming engineers. I put over 150 engineers through that course. And it was very gratifying very nice. I really liked the ethic at Northrop. It was great. I don't know what it's like now, but it was great back then. Hello from West Virginia to all. Great success with mixed 43 ferrite snap-on beads on coax for CB 10 meters and up to VHF. Kills a lot of RFI. Cleans up transmit even. Christopher, I agree. Upgrading to pre-made chokes, yes. Problem is you need to feed them over the end of the coax before you put the connector on, because they won't after that. You don't use info as a weapon. No, I want to share. That's why I have this channel. I want to share. The channel came together because my local church asked me to teach a class on ham radio to people in the, it would be, if this were the Catholic Church, it'd be at the diocese level. So it's one level above the local congregation. And we call it a stake, like a stake in the tent of Zion. And it's huge. It covers, I don't know, probably a quarter of western Colorado. And it's just too far for people to go for a class. So I says, well, I'll make some videos, and people can watch the videos, and it might help them through their self-study. Well, I started getting emails from all over the United States saying, keep this up, do general, do extra. So, and then it was actually an Augie who suggested to me that I do a Q&A type channel called Ask Dave, and that's where that came from. Let's see, what time is it? It's 7:15. Okay. Hi, Linwood. How are you doing there? Chris Gray, I'm using a 49-to-1 long wire running along the peak of my attic for listening. Works pretty well. Trey Furt says he worked for Northrop Grumman. Gary Murdoch thinks I'm a good teacher. Thank you. Small World worked in hybrid microelectronics for the MX at Honeywell around the same time. Here's a blast from the aeronautics past. My grandfather used to work Hughes Aircraft. Well, Hughes Aircraft was taken over by different people. The old Hughes building in Aurora, I think, was taken over by Raytheon, but another section of Hughes was taken over by Northrop. I never liked the ethic at Hughes Aircraft. It was very aggressive. Howard Hughes was a businessman, not an engineer. He was a businessman, and it was just an interesting ethic. My daughter worked for them for a while, Raytheon, which was that old part there. I rate experience higher than qualifications. Well, it depends on what you're doing. I always looked at what jobs I had. I was assisting in a workshop with college students. And this engineering student was really highlighting all his work at a liquor store. And I suggested maybe he could tone that down just a little bit so it would look more like business experience than familiarity with every type of tequila or something like that. He got really mad at me, so oh well. I get bad noise every 100 kilohertz on the 10 to 80 meter, even when the antenna is disconnected on an IC7300 running off a battery. Any ideas? No, that's weird. Make sure that the power supply and the 7300 is well grounded. I don't know why it would be every 100 kilohertz. The new radios no longer have the 100 kilohertz frequency. They used to put a little 100 kilohertz oscillator in every radio. and it put out a square wave, so it was very rich in harmonics, or a triangle wave it must have been. And so you could hear these harmonics all the way up through the ham bands, and you could tell where the edge of the channel was with these. And they haven't put those in radios in years because the radios are so much better. Okay, well, we have a little bit of business to take care of here. See if I can get all of this in my hand. This is the input to drawing 1. Okay? I'm not sure how many are there, but that's a lot. It consists of envelopes, QSL cards, and I think there's like 4 or 5 real postcards. Postcards are still a thing. You can still go down to the post office and buy postcards. And you should know that if you're mailing QSL cards, they make postcard forever stamps that you can use on your QSL cards and save a few cents. Now that it's getting so expensive. One thing I noticed today, I was looking at the date that the stamp was canceled, you know, the date of mailing on some of these, and it's taking up to a week for first class postage to get here. So what I have done with all of these, there's a million of them, okay? I've very carefully scrambled them. And what I'm going to do is just run my finger down the edge here and pick a spot and pull out the winner of the drawing. And they get this book from the Radio Society of Great Britain called Novel Antennas. Okay, and novel means unusual. Okay, so this is not a standard get started antenna book, but it might have something that is of interest to you. So, okay, we've got all these stacked up. Let's do it. Now they're rearranged. I've spent some time this afternoon randomizing the order here. So if I draw it from this bottom edge here, I get, it could be a postcard, it could be an envelope, it could be whatever, and I'll draw it from the middle here. Let's get this over here. Okay, and we'll just draw. I'm going to put my finger in right there and take out the one that's on top. And it's K1TJB. And he is Tom Bernanke, P.O. Box, in Lincoln, New Hampshire, NH 03251, Lincoln, New Hampshire, an ARRL member. And he writes, Dave, thanks for sharing your wisdom. I got stamped on the bottom here by the post office. And so this book will go to him tomorrow, probably. I'll get it in there. And I'll send this, it'll go out via first class, I think. So, and there will be a tracking number on it, but I don't know how to get that to you. I'll look on QRZ and see if you have an email there. So congratulations to Tom for winning drawing 1, which is this right here. Okay, now what am I going to do with the rest of these? What did I promise you? Privacy. No record keeping. The names aren't going anywhere. They're not going to be sold. There's not going to be a mailing list. These are going right here. Okay? They're gone. And I'm not keeping any records or anything like that. So there is privacy that I told you I would keep, and I will. Now, I know that other people run giveaways so that they can collect information and sell it. A very lucrative field. Let's see, App Glass. I guess you are K1TJB, our winner of drawing 1. So that will go with this. And when I'm done, well, I think I may ship your card back to you just so you'll have it there. Very good. And yeah, now some people sent, I think most people send a business side envelope with their QSL card in it. Okay, and I just left it that way. Other people sent the QSL cards, and a very small number, less than 10, sent postcards. Okay, and as we see, even the small little QSL card can win. Okay, so oh dear. Yeah, oh, the post office has been terribly slow. It's a leftover from the Trump administration. They've changed some personnel now, but the program is still in place. Basically, what the Trump, they put him up front so he could attract all the lightning. Meanwhile, underneath him was an army of top-level bureaucrats who set out to initiate certain programs of a slightly more conservative bent than, say, under Obama or somebody like that. They're still part of the government. And I know that the government works at the speed of government, which is very slow. And they're trying to take a new look at the post office. The post office is shedding money like crazy. And it's still keeping these old standards, overnight for first-class mail and so on. They're not making any money on first-class mail because, it used to be, well, the bill collectors had to send the bills out. No, I don't get bills in the mail, except from the propane company, and they're local. I have as many bills as I can auto-paid, so I really never do more than glance at the email that comes. And the post office just can't keep this up. And they're not competing well with FedEx and UPS. And so they're taking a very close look. The post office is constitutionally required in the United States. It's part of the Constitution. Ben Franklin is the one who made sure that that was in the Constitution. Ben Franklin. Because he wanted the government to provide a service for the common good that would allow people to communicate, send newspapers, do all kinds of things. And so we've had a post office ever since. It's constitutionally required. And the post office has been, quote, privatized, but it is still an appendage of the federal government. It has to be, because it's in the Constitution. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm disappointed that they're slowing down first-class mail. So let's look at the prize for drawing number 2. That's right here. I'll put it in a neater box. This is, I'm kind of curled up here because it's been outside for so long. This is the My Antennas InFed half wave 80 through 10 1K, so it'll take up to 1,000 watts intermittent. Okay, and there's the wire for it, the little coil that goes in there, and it's got a end. Let's see, it's right here. This is the end insulator right here. Okay, and I've got the instructions for it here. Okay, so this is Drawing number 2. Got so many antennas sitting out there. We'll switch them out with different kinds of things. I've got some QRP radios I think need to be passed along. And other stuff like that. And we'll see if we can't clear some of the shelves and put these things, get them to people who are actually going to use them. I have already received 1, 2. This is giveaway number 2, and this is giveaway number 2. So, same instructions as before. Send a postcard or your QSL card or an envelope with a single piece of paper in it to Dave Casler, P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado 81432. Now, if you misspell Ridgeway, don't worry, it'll get here. There's no E in Ridgeway, but most of the world doesn't believe that, as I can see from the ones that came. Okay, so that will be the prize for drawing number 2. So keep those cards and letters coming. Again, there was somebody who sent a tip and said that he didn't want to enter the drawing. Well, this got lost in all the drawing cards. So I appreciate the tip very much, but I would encourage you to use PayPal and use the tip jar there. Tips have been down a lot. I know that this has been a confusing time for many. It's also summertime, and it's still light out here, and so a lot of people don't want to go in the house till it gets dark. We'll pick up in the winter. I'd like to just give you a report on my assistant, Callum Jakeman is his name. He's 18 now. So I've been on his case about getting vaccinated. He hasn't yet. But I'm not. I could make it a condition of employment, but I don't want to lose him. So he can do what he wants. All right. He's a good kid. He's one of these people that you tell him how to do it once, and he's got it. And he actually is editing very nearly all the videos that go out now. That means he takes the original files, he crops them, cuts them, puts pieces together, gets the audio all, let's see, we use speech compression for that. There are things that are done with the speech and everything, and he puts them together, he uploads them to YouTube, he just does a simply thing. I'm not bashing Trump over snail mail. He didn't do it. It was his people. You know, mails that been waiting for years. No, that's not true. I don't buy that. We have a very good postmaster here. It's actually a postmistress. She's been here for years. It's nice to go to the small town post office and just walk up to the counter and she says, "Just a minute," and comes back with the package that's in my name. And I haven't told her who I am. I mean, she knows who I am. So, have you given any thought to doing a net? I've given some thought, but haven't done it. Address one more time, please. Okay, let's just use this. KE0OG. Oh, got it wrong. P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, and he's got the E in there. There's actually not an E there. It's named after a person, not a geographic feature. Ridgeway, Colorado 81432. Okay, P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado 81432. So I'll mention that in several of the upcoming videos, and I have in some of them that are already up. Let's see. J or K, scroll back to catch. Oh, yeah. Well, this, I enable the DVR feature on this so you can kind of scroll back and get it. Can you please explain cut numbers? Well, I know N is 9. What are the other cut numbers? Well, I know a lot of people use a very long dash for 0. Beyond that, I don't know. It's using a letter to substitute for a number. And I've used the long dash for the 0. I've used N for 9. 5NN. I don't know if somebody can answer that. That'd be really neat. A couple people, I have not recognized them. I should do that. We've got one here. David Robinson sent in $7.99 without comment. Thank you very much, David. Those go into channel funds. And then this next one was Dave. There's more down. My goodness, it goes forever. Lots of comments. And this is James, KI5OEB. $2 added to chat revenue. Thank you, Dave, for being the best Elmer online. Well, thank you. The 5 friends of friends who died from complications after receiving the vaccine. That's extremely unusual. You must know a lot of people. I know no one who has died of COVID. I do. In Uray County, we just had the death of someone who was vaccinated by COVID, died of COVID. You know, if you want to know what's really happening, like I said, I worked with a lot of government bureaucrats over my years, and I will tell you that almost uniformly, these are people who are extremely dedicated to their jobs. Dr. Fauci could make a lot more money working for a drug company, believe me. Go to the Centers for Disease Control and check that page. Check the Wikipedia page. Okay, check the pharmacy sites for these things. Check mainstream news outlets that actually print a paper. Okay, like the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Seattle, I think it's the Times, New York Times, Washington Post. These people actually print a paper. Go get your information from them. Don't be taken in by these fake websites that pop up that look so official. Okay. Spike, go to Wikipedia and educate yourself on vaccines. Vaccines are not 100% effective. Although the smallpox polio, they've almost eliminated polio. There's a few spots left in, of all places, Afghanistan, and smallpox is another one like that. It's a very nearly eliminated disease because of vaccines. It was vaccines that did it. I have been concerned. I never had chickenpox as a kid. No, measles. I never had measles as a kid. I had German measles, but not regular measles. And somehow I escaped that. And now these people going around say don't get the vaccine, measles is spreading again. And in a kid, it's harmless. In an adult, it can be fatal. And so I went to my doctor when I heard about this, and I said, can you please check to see if I have the antibodies for measles? And there is a test that can be done, and he did it. He says, Dave, you don't need to worry, you've got the antibodies. So I was very worried about that because measles in an adult can be fatal. Um, have I ever had polio? Neither have I. My uncle did as a teenager, and that was before the vaccine. Um, yeah, it is. No, they're not actually left-leaning. You want to talk about AOC and people like that. They're left-leaning. I'm not. I have an article in State he found that the building the traps with 70 ohm cable and just making a circle. Okay. I don't even know what VAERS is. Okay. Look, guys, I'm an American. I care about our country. I'm also an engineer and a mathematician. I know science. I read on it constantly. And I know politics, too. And the different sides, the different kinds of leanings and so on. And I know bullshit when I see it, okay? So let's get back to ham radio. Chicken pox is herpes, yes. And I do get cold sores, but a lot of people through the No Agenda podcast, including medical workers, these are real people. And they have lost friends. Yeah, there's a guy in the ham club, our ham club, whose wife has long-term COVID. Ryan Plyler has sent $5 to add to channel funds. Thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate it. Also got 6-shot anthrax. Oh, man, when I went into the Air Force, they tested me for tuberculosis, and I had a positive tine. And I was exposed to it on my mission over in the Philippines. And I carried the virus in me. And I had to go on, there's some drug that you're on for a year that, INH therapy is what it was called then. It's got a different name now. I was on that drug for a year. And until they pronounced me TB free, but they told me to never ever get a tine test again because they've got a little tiny bit of live bacteria on that to see how the body reacts to it, to see if the body has antigens, or whatever they're called, against it. And I've been told never to have a tine test again. And the Red Cross will not take my blood because I had that positive tine in the Air Force and was exposed to but never caught tuberculosis. And now I have lung issues. And I just spoke with the office of my pulmonologist today. I'm going in next week to see about these lung issues. And it may all go back to what I did when I was 20. So we'll see. That stuff can stay in you for a long time. People who had polio as kids get this thing called post-polio syndrome when they're old. Some of the paralysis returns. Yeah. Well, Chris, the FDA just gave formal final approval to the Pfizer vaccine. It has gone through the standard checkout now. It's not on emergency approval anymore. It's now underlying conditions matter. Yeah. Spike, calm down. Go get something out of the fridge. Statistic seatbelts don't save everyone who wears one. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not. When I was a teenager, we bought one, and it had provisions to add seatbelts, and my dad would not get them. And when I learned to drive in that thing, and when I became 16, I was working at the motorcycle shop, and I basically went down to the Volkswagen dealer and spent a week's wages on some seatbelts. And I put them in the Volkswagen. And my dad was furious. He would not let the government tell him what to do. boy, I caught hell for it. But we've lost the internet. Okay, I guess it's okay now. No, it says no data. There we go. Excellent connection. Yeah, I mostly stick to amateur radio topics. I'm sorry. I have opinions on ham radio topics, and what's the first rule of system engineering? Everything affects everything. So, anthrax vac was bad. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Channel could use a couple moderators. Yeah, I have the ability to simply with a couple clicks of the mouse make somebody disappear, and I try not to do that because people have, a lot of people think that I've got a level head on my shoulders, but I belong to the craziest religion in the world, So people are different. Okay. William Myers put $15 into channel funds and said, "Thanks, Dave. I really look forward to these Thursday night live streams. Thanks for mostly sticking to amateur radio topics." So thinking. Let's see. Newspapers. Yeah, they do. Yeah, and there's a lot of, I would characterize the New York Times, since I read it every day, as slightly left of center. I would characterize the Sun and so on. I'm sorry, I'm going to take a moment off and go see if my wife's using the internet. Sorry, my wife uses the internet to watch TV, and I've got an agreement with her that on Thursday nights, that's mine. I've got the internet. I don't know what's going on. We're just having a little bit of a bad connection. Harry Rundle sends $5 for channel funds. Thank you. Your videos, which are shared with our Aero Amateur Club and Q&A sessions, are great. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Worked with the guy who had a form of TB that was not human, or something like that. Oh, human, but avian. Yes, there are a number of diseases that can go back and forth between humans and animals. One particularly difficult one is with swine, the pigs. The pig genome is remarkably almost identical to humans. And I guess you can look at me. I've been a pig at the table. That's why pigs are used for tests. The mouse genome is somewhat similar. Mice are much easier to deal with than pigs. But if you look at the way the pig's spine is constructed, it's very similar to the human. They've been doing some experiments to see if they can grow human organs in pigs. They haven't succeeded yet. But they're trying to take a human kidney, transplant it into a pig, and see if it will thrive. And not yet. They haven't done that. Because which is the way of donating to the channel that has the fewest fees to you? PayPal. If you go to dcasler.com/support, it lists a whole different bunch of ways that you can support. It's got a tip jar, which is PayPal, It's a one-time. And there's also a subscription for PayPal, which is once a month. It's like Patreon, only there are fewer fees, but there's also less communication. So I try and send an email every month to people who are doing that. Patreon is there, of course, and always quite acceptable. One thing I do on Patreon, you should know this, is that every week Callum takes one of the videos that's 4 or 5 days before it'll be go up on YouTube. He'll put it on Patreon, so patrons can see it early. But PayPal is the way that takes the list. Ham radio's original social distancing. Yes, yes, absolutely. Which end of a sloping end-fed antenna should be higher, coax end or other end? It does not matter. It does not matter. So don't worry about that. Whichever works best for you. I find putting the Ballon end near the house is best. Now, if you read the instructions through and try and read between the lines of, because they've got all different kinds of pictures here of how to do things and so on. They say put the ends about 7 feet high, put the middle up 20 feet high, and you've got an inverted V, and that's what I did. I did that, and it was fantastic. I was very impressed with the thing. Okay, let's see, stay 2 meters apart. Yeah, if we all use our 2-meter rigs, we're social distancing, right? Because it's 2 meters, right? 6 feet. Okay, whoops. If you slip through here. Harry Rundle, thank you. Take the vaccine, yeah. We should, but some people, there are going to be a lot of people who don't take the vaccine who are going to skate through this whole thing. And then for the rest of their lives, they'll be saying, the government wanted me to take that vaccine. My dad could do that. He's he's passed away now, but he was a World War II veteran of the South Pacific. He went into the Navy hoping to learn to fly, but he flunked the color blindness test. So they put him in a shipboard position where he had to read the flags on the other ships, the signal flags. And he often remarked to me, he held that against the Navy for putting him in a job where he needed to see colors, but they wouldn't let him fly. So anyway, that's why I got the airplane. I wanted to finish my dad's job of flying, but I didn't quite get there, but I will get there yet. Where was I? Oh, yes. This is from Phil Lewis, $5. Thank you all for you do for ham community. Keep telling people to use reputable sites for news and info. Yeah. Let's not keep reliving 1918. Yeah, the history books talk about the flu epidemic. Back then, it's just... Well, there was a flu epidemic. I know it really hit the town of Silverton hard. There's some stuff in museums down there. Silverton's not far from here. It really hit the town hard. And it was mostly young people who died. But this business about the anti-maskers was, I didn't know this. I was never taught this in school. But the anti-maskers were a big thing back during that flu epidemic. Now, there were no vaccines back then other than for smallpox. But because the way you vaccinated somebody against smallpox was to give them the extract from cowpox, from cows, and that would actually vaccinate the human. So many died from the flu, but it was extremely controversial, extremely. just like today. Extremely controversial. Do you know of anyone making azimuth rotors with servo motors for lightweight antennas, speed versus load? I don't. I was kind of looking for that for my receive-only antenna because it has a null in it and it kind of needs to be moved around for it. Most of them use little tiny motors geared way, 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 way down. And if you find one, I would like to know about it. Coax end should be lower. It's a dipole. You're feeding it on the end. But if that works for you. So it's the patent office constituted by the United States by Thomas Jefferson. Well, Thomas Jefferson was actually our third president, not our first. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, although there's some controversy about that. He is certainly the secretary of the Continental Congress who wrote the final version that went to King George. But there is a patent office, and the copyrights are talked about in the Constitution too, that says that patents and copyrights will be issued for a limited time. So since forever, for patents, that's 17 years. And for a long time, that was true of copyrights too, until Walt Disney came along. And people were taking Mickey Mouse and making cartoons about Mickey Mouse, and they were doing it without the permission of Disney. Congress got involved in it, and ever since then, the Mickey Mouse exclusion has gone to the point where now, if I write a book, which I've done, I own the copyright for the rest of my life plus 75 years. Now, I don't know if the rest of my life plus 75 years even comes close to falling under the definition of limited time, but that's what they think it is. Okay. All right. 4-point harness in our airplane when we could get it. Okay. If I use a buddy pole on a wood boat deck, would it be a good idea to run a ground wire from the tripod into the water? Only if it's salt water. Only if it's salt water. If it's just regular water, clear water, potable water is not very conductive. Thank you for the words. Be safe as well. Thank you. Salt water makes an excellent ground plane. Have you heard about technician gave permission and 80 meters? If the FCC has done something this week about it, I haven't seen it. There is a proposal from the league that techs be given voice privileges essentially where there used to be novice bands. So they'd be given a little on 80, 40, 15, and 10, but not 20. And it was the same way before. 20 was forbidden to novices because the old boys didn't want to give something that good away to novices. And that mentality is still around, I guess. I'm finding that having more than one antenna for HF works for hitting different locations. Absolutely. It's because the distribution pattern. Let's see. We're having a downpour here in North Carolina. Maybe that's why the internet's bad. Even if your church is crazy, you're still an awesome group of people. Well, thank you. I do like that typewriter. Yes, I picked that up at Dayton in 2019. Paid $50 for it. And I use it a lot. You can get them. They're still around. I mean, all those typewriters didn't get thrown out. There's a bunch in attics and in garages and stuff like that. You can find them. I got one down here. It's a 1940 L.C. Smith, that pre-war typewriter. I got it at a second-hand store in town. Yeah, okay. Have you ever had experience with DX Commander vertical antenna? I got one in the backyard I need to finish. That's one of Callum's jobs, but he hasn't gotten to it yet. Okay, got to go watch outer limits. Okay, here is Kent, K9AEE, thank you. 1 is A, da-da. 2 is U, da-da-da. 3 is V, da-da-da-da. 4 equals, let's see, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, and B is for 8, D is 9, N 0, T sometimes E. Okay, sometimes 5. 5 equals E. Okay. Let's see. I got something here. I got too far. Kyle Zarinju. I am mispronouncing that. I know it. Has put $20 into channel funds. Life is too short to be wasted on futile, inane arguments, and yet we do it with great gusto. It's called politics. Just noticed my vertical has the tip bent over from the winds earlier this week. Was wondering why it was tuning high. Well, that would do it. If that's a capacitance hat up at the top and that gets tweaked, it'll change the capacitance. I've wondered and impressed by its performance. Let's see. It's more about ham radio, talking about our ailments. Oh, yeah, well, true. That would do it. No such antenna. It's about the cell whatever. Good night, Dave. Love you, buddy. Bob Taylor sends $25 into channel funds and says, start Thursday night bowling in 2 weeks. We'll try to keep my support going. WB6TIS in Rigby, Idaho. And he graduated from Hoover High School in Glendale, California in 1966. I graduated from Crescenta Valley High School in the same school district in 1969. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, $15 for channel funds. Thanks, Dave, for all you do. Can you tell me the best way to tune up an AL81? Don't want to hurt the tubes. Read the manual. Read the manual and follow it exactly. Tune it up at low power. Back the power off and tune it up till you get it right. Okay. You don't want to hurt the tubes. Make sure you tune it up with your antenna because your antenna will change the tuning in there. If it's a tube amp, it's got a pi network on the output, which is, in essence, an antenna tuner. Okay, so it's matching the output section to the antenna. Some people like to tune theirs up into a dummy load, but then if you put it on the antenna, if the antenna is pretty close to in tune, you won't have a problem, but be careful with it. You can hurt the tubes. You can. We didn't call it hurting the tubes back then. We said that the tubes would soften. A soft tube was a ruined tube that wouldn't put out very much power. Ready to make my first 49-to-1 auto transformer. I have available 14 gauge and magnet wire and insulated stranding wire. Is one better than the other for winding the core? Probably the magnet wire. If it's 14 gauge, yeah, the magnet wire. Glenn thanks me here. I thought about an inverted V in your attic if you can fit it. Very good. Advice not asked for is advice not received. I find advice on the vaccines to be much like advice on antennas. Yeah, everybody's got a different idea. Dave, did you get any questions this week? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I need to sit down in the next couple days and write my Ask Dave column, which will be for October, I think. And that will be coming up. Let's see. Did you get any questions this week? I got lots of questions. And every video these days is based around a question. It just seems to be the rhythm that Callum and I are into. I have not made any real tutorial videos in a while. I've got to make a few more of those. There's been some requests for them. Chameleon recently introduced the CHA-LEFS, which is an end-fed sloper. It's lightweight, including a 9-to-1 Ballon. Reviews good. If I have any experience in a similar configuration, well, it's just an end-fed antenna. I would go with the 49-to-1 Ballon. But some people like the 9-to-1. There's a huge difference in the amount of impedance. 9 times 50 is 450. Whereas 49 times 50 is very significant. It's in the thousands. And the end of a dipole is thousands of ohms, is the impedance. The center impedance is the lowest. The reference antenna, the off-center fed antenna, is fed with first of all, a choke Ballon, and then there is a transformer Ballon that's actually got 2 cores in it. It's a current Ballon, and it's at the 1/3 point, and it's 400 ohms. And that's what that Ballon does. It changes it to 400 ohms. Okay. Yeah, when I talk to new missionaries who are going off on their mission, I tell them there are several times in your life when you're going to get a lot of free advice. Going on a mission is one, getting married is one, having a baby is one, buying a house. You're going to get a lot of free, unsolicited advice. And the thing I want to tell you is this: that advice is worth exactly what you paid for it. Nothing. So, can you explain the process of tuning a multiband dipole that is a single wire? It confuses me on which band I am tuning. A multi-band dipole that is a single wire. So you're talking about something like 102-foot long North Carolina or Carolina Windham or something like that. You need some way of keeping track of what your antenna tuner is tuned to, because you're going to have to retune when you go to a new band. So, jot it down on your logbook or something so that you know if you switch bands, you're going to have to retune. Of course, your SWR meter will tell you that too. So, 7 feet apart should be 14.2857 more effective than 6 feet apart. Oh, golly. Disney, yes, Disney, Walt Disney. And they are rabid about their copyrights. Now, there is something you can do. It's called a multi-team marketing association or something. YouTube actually encourages them, where you can sign up with Disney. And they might even give you just a little bit of money. But the thing is that you can use the Disney characters and clips from Disney films and stuff like that in your YouTube channel with Disney's encouragement, because it's actually advertising for them, and they like that. I have not signed up with anybody for multi-marketing. I have signed up with the American Radio Relay League. We've already started the first part of that collaboration, which is to do the column, the one that the doctor used to do. I'm doing that now, and they've changed the name to Ask Dave. They wanted it to be the same name as my channel. So, if the world were flat, the cats would have knocked it off the edge. I like that. Okay. Tom Hanks is a collector of typewriters, yes. He wrote the preface for a book that I read about typewriters that was reviewed in the New York Times. And I was so impressed with the book that I went out and acquired 3 typewriters. But the one from 1940, this one's from 1973, And the one under the table is an electric typewriter that was made in 2020. You can still buy typewriters at Office Depot and Staples, both. They're very simple. It's a little daisy wheel printer with a computer keyboard and probably something about the size of a microcontroller in there to make it act like a typewriter. And it has, since it's the daisy wheel, it's got beautiful print. But I wanted the old-fashioned print, so I got the old one there. Let's see. I'd like to find an IBM Selectric 3. There's probably some there. Saltwater for Mike Oswald, who put $10 into the channel funds there. Thank you, Mike. And enjoy that in the saltwater. Use that. No telling how much correcting ribbons would cost, though. Yeah, this thing you have to buy the correcting ribbon for. This one over here, I use these little things, which you can get at Office Depot. This is correction tape. And you just put it on, and if it's a white sheet of paper, you can't tell that it's there. I have an MFJ 1982N Fed. What is the best way to set it up? Look at the instruction book, look at your options, then go out and stand in your backyard and envision several different ways to put it up. Oh, okay. Soft tube is no use for anyone, yes. Can sprinkler wire work for antennas or grounding wires? Antennas, yes, although it's not very strong. Grounding, no. I wouldn't ground with it, it's too thin. To those who are worried about, oh, okay. Took both of them on dialysis, no side effects. I did have some side effects after the second shot. I was wiped out for a day. And nothing much. The amplifier that runs in 220 or 240 volts, does the power supply that is required, is it 120 volts to 240 volt converter? No. Or do I need to wire in a 220/240 outlet? Yes. The reason is because 1500 watts, max power out, okay? Consider that that amplifier is about 50% efficient in terms of all the chain that power goes through, okay? 50% efficient at best. That's 3,000 watts. You can't do 3,000 watts over 14 AWG wire. And it won't go on a 15 amp circuit. You need a 30 amp circuit at least to run that amplifier. So yeah, you've got an electrician bill that you need to do, or in most states, you're allowed to do your own electrical work on your home if you get a permit. I'd get an electrician. I don't like to fool with 220 volts. How hard is it going from the computer to the typewriter? It's totally different. It's totally different. I learned to touch type on a machine like that. I also learned on a Selectric. They had a Selectric there. This keyboard right here, which is the M keyboard from IBM, has the same layout as an IBM Selectric, and I like it because my fingers are very jittery these days, and this keyboard I can actually type on. Let's see. Oh, here's one. No, I'm not going to put that. I'm sorry, Gary. That one won't go up. Okay. Gary Bernstein made a bunch of comments and then, oh, he just put X. Oh, I think he's reminding me we're out of time. I figured the radio out by trial and error with the Nano VNA. Okay, Gary, I don't know what that one means, but I'm going to show it anyway. Okay. Children should be in bed now. My block clicks getting a workout. Can understand trolling, but spamming, no. That one right there, I'm going to actually remove that one. Okay. 28.4. 28.4 is at the very bottom of the, well, it's voice. It's voice. Technicians can do it too. Thanks for all you do for ham radio. I like the training videos. Loves to see some operation. I also have an old ticking clock. Yes, I have a thing about old clocks. Gotta go. All right. We are out of time. We are past time. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your participation in the drawing. It's just fun to open the envelopes and see the little notes that people write in them. I do look at every one. And pulled the one out that was a tip just tonight. I caught that. Tom, this will be on its way to you tomorrow, assuming I get to the post office. Then, so send in for the September giveaway, which is this antenna here, and we'll see you then. So, until we next meet, 73.